Welcome back. You're watching news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Sherliyev, and here are the headlines. Hundreds of workers of Munay Field Service in Zhanaozen organized a protest action. People fear to be sacked due to the absence of contracts from subcontractor. Psychological examination of border guard Vladislav Chelak was completed in Almaty. Soldier was put into the pre-trial detention facility while the results are not being disclosed yet. A special operation is being held in the mountains of Tajikistan to detain the alleged killers of the general of the State National Security Committee. As a result of the shootouts, around 200 people were killed, half of them civilians. At least 200 people were killed in Gorno-Badakhshan area in Tajikistan, where a special operation was launched on Tuesday morning aiming to detain the alleged killers of the general of the State National Security Committee, Abdullah Nazarov. According to the reports of BBC Russia, around 100 servicemen and the same number of civilians were killed in the town of Kharok. According to the official data, Dushanbe hospitals are preparing to hospitalize around 60 wounded soldiers.
Data concerning the number of the murdered varies. According to Tajik Radio Svoboda, at least 30 people were murdered during the Special Forces raid. Earlier, it was reported about 9 murdered military and 25 wounded. Some sources report that the informal leader of the Pamir, Yedgor Shomusalamov, and the head of the prosecution, Rushan Nafazbek Dilshod, were also murdered. According to unconfirmed reports, a former warlord, Aymbekov, who was charged with the murder of Nazarov, has fled to Afghanistan. Referring to its own source, Regnum Agency says that a group of militants is moving from Afghanistan to Tajikistan to support the former field commanders in Badakhshan. Some experts consider the Special Forces raid in Khorog as an act of intimidation. The poorest region of Tajikistan has always irritated Tajik authorities. The opinion leaders of the Pamir region de facto have more power than the central authorities. Moreover, besides being a staging point for smuggled goods, Badakhshan is also a part of the so-called Northern Supply Corridor of Afghan heroin. First, the Special Forces raid is a retaliation act for the death of a high-ranking security officer, who was also a distinguished person in the current president's team. On the other hand, we consider that Dushanbe would like to take Khorog, including the above-mentioned trade flows, under tighter control. It goes without saying that local power does not want to share the money with the big and happy family of Imam Ali Rahman that has taken everything that is related to business and finance under control.
Kazakh citizen Yermek Kasmagambetov was sentenced to 5 years in jail in Uzbekistan. He was found guilty in smuggling of materials that promote extremism and terrorism. Kazakhstan diplomatic mission have already appealed to the Uzbek authorities to pardon Kasmagambetov, while his relatives intend to appeal the decision of the Uzbek court next week.
Yermek's friend Akmaral Sharikova just arrived from Uzbekistan and said the outcome might have been a lot worse. The charges are quite serious and the prosecutor actually asked for 7 years in prison. Yermek partially admitted his guilt, but only for taking the netbook into the country. He, however, noted that he didn't know about the religious extremist content stored on a hard drive. Despite health problems, Kasmagambetov currently feels well, and his family hopes he will be pardoned under August amnesty drive. It is not really clear why Uzbek authorities decided to punish a citizen of the neighboring country in such a showcase way. Some say the entire situation is politically motivated and is affected by the troubled relations between the two presidents. Nevertheless, it is obvious that Uzbek court's ruling is not entirely objective. After all, virtually all of the witnesses confirmed the innocence of Kasmagambetov. All witnesses were on our side. Customs employee officially stated that Yermek didn't try to hide the files in question, and during the interrogation he had stated that he bought the netbook from his cousin, not being aware of what is inside.
The relatives and lawyers of the accused of organizing terrorist group in Taras claimed that during the investigation law enforcement have tortured the suspects. Attorneys reported to the Azatik radio that it was impossible to prove the innocence of the defendants due to the fact that the trial was closed.
The Prosecutor General's office, in its turn, informs that there were no complaints from the relatives of the accused. As a reminder, on November 12, 2011, 34-year-old Maksat Kariyev detonated himself in Taraz city of Jambul region. 5 law enforcement officers and 2 local residents died. 3 policemen were wounded. As a result of the terrorist attack investigation, 4 people involved in the explosion were sentenced to varying terms from 5 to 25 years in a high-security prison. The lawyers of the accused do not agree with the court's decision and are going to appeal appeal it all the way through to an international court.
Border guard Vladislav Chelach was taken away from the building of the Almaty Psychiatric Center on Tuesday. According to the chief doctor of the clinic, Natalia Logacheva, the psychiatric examination of the soldier is over. However, its results are not being disclosed due to investigation secrecy. At the moment, the border guard, who is suspected of killing 14 of his fellow soldiers and huntsmen at the Arkan-Kergen border outpost, is detained in the pre-trial detention facility. More details in the next report.
A psychiatric examination is complete. Vladislav Chelach was transferred to a detention center. The result of physician's expertise has not been disclosed. However, the grandfather of the border guard accused in the case of the Arkan-Kergen incident is confident that doctors realize that the soldier is sane. Mother and grandfather of Vladislav Chelach were waiting outside the Institute of Psychiatry in Almaty from 10 a.m., hoping to see him. The family of Chelach is denied to visit him and the hospital gates are locked up. We used to be able to pass parcels between 5 and 6 p.m. and if we arranged it with the doctors, we could do it any time before 10 a.m. and the doctors were always open. It's never been closed before. The restless anticipation was worsened by suspicious behavior of medical staff. Relatives started to realize that physicians' expertise will not be revealed to them, and moreover, the scandalous patient will be secretly transferred elsewhere. Please get the camera away from me. And why are we waiting here in vain? Was he already transferred? I'll refrain from comments, but you shouldn't be waiting for him. Yet the waiting was not pointless after all. 2 hours later, Vladislav Chelach was transported out of the Institute of Psychiatry. The family of the border guard, who was accused of murdering 14 fellow soldiers and a huntsman, want to become his public defenders. Svetlana Vashenka, the mother of the suspect, says that they sent an official letter to the investigator. However, he never responded. Besides, the police have not yet provided the results of DNA tests for the 3 unidentified bodies, assuming that these are the remains of Chelach's fellow soldiers. It's impossible to receive any information from neither the National Security Committee nor the Prosecutor General's office. No comments. I repeat, please address your questions to the Public Affairs Office. I am not authorized to make comments. The investigator is in charge of it all. I'm not involved in the investigation at the prosecutor's office, so I have no comments. I don't even know the details of the case. Mother of Denis Rey, Tatiana, as well as other parents of soldiers killed on Arkan-Kergen outpost, plans to go to Almaty. She was invited to the opening of a memorial plaque in honor of the border guards. The woman is not sure whether her son's name will be on it. Officially, the remains of Denis have not yet been located. Therefore, his mother doesn't want to believe in his death. Tatiana said that on Monday evening she spoke to a representative of the military prosecutor's office on the phone, and he's hard to get a hold of. The woman was trying to figure out how plausible is the version about the 3 soldiers surviving in the Maze massacre, yet the man refused to answer. On Monday, I asked him a question. Don't you think 3 of these boys have been kidnapped? Maybe they need our help and we should find them. And he replied, I cannot answer this question. I will explain everything later when the time comes. Vladimir Chelach is also planning to attend the meeting of the border guards' families. He wants to talk to them and convince them of the innocence of his grandson. To prevent possible acts of provocation and to convince people to behave appropriately towards my grandson and me, I will certainly go there if I can. Karakanda residents say that the mothers of all border guards will arrive in Almaty on Wednesday. Perhaps they will be taken to the scene of the incident by helicopters. However, the uninvited relatives of the surviving Chelach will arrive to the commemorative event on their own.
The wife of the killed ex-member of the MIA and the member of the Kazakhstan political party of Patriots, Nadilia Bayanbayeva, and her lawyer made an appeal to the Almaty Department of Internal Affairs, demanding to voice the real lead of what happened and refute the information that Azimbayev used a knife, while police officers were wearing bulletproof jackets. This is what was reported by the Department of Internal Affairs on Monday. However, she is confident that her husband never carried arms with him, as he was a master of sports of international scale in unarmed combat, sambo and judo.
What happened? Why was he killed? Why was he shot in the back of his head when they could have shot any part of his body, but someone needed him to die in shame? It is absurd to say he was trying to stab someone with a knife through a body armor, and it is clear that the knife was planted. According to Nadila, until the 1990s, her husband worked for the Interior Ministry and was a founder of the Riot Police Special Force Unit. Having retired from law enforcement, Azimbayev set up his own security agency. Later, he founded a non-government organization for a safe city, hoping to turn Almaty into a calm and safe metropolis. Azimbayev also participated in the Asian Games in 2011. The employees of his security agency were the guardians of the Olympic flame. Nadila believes that her husband's background and services to the Interior Ministry should influence the course of the investigation. The incident occurred around 9:30 last Wednesday evening. The police patrol arrived at a city square after receiving a call about a hooligan assaulting a man with a child. According to the Department of Internal Affairs, the hooligan resisted arrest and was in possession of a knife. One of the police officers shot Azimbayev in the head during the fight. His family and friends do not believe in the legitimacy of using weapons by the law enforcement officer. Moreover, the official version contradicts the testimony of eyewitnesses. He was very confused. I saw him sitting on the ground, touching his head and saying he shot the man in the head for putting up resistance. He said he shouted and told him to stop and warned him that he was going to shoot. Then he fired a shot, and that is when I came up to him and asked if he called an ambulance.
The prosecution office of Mangistau region will appeal the verdict for the ex-mayor of Zhanaozen, Orak Sarbapev, who was acquitted on June 22nd of this year. According to the information of the prosecution press service, in the nearest future, the legality of the verdict to Sarbapev will be evaluated by the appellate council of the regional court.
The former mayor of Zhanaozen has been charged with abuse of power, bribery, and attempt to commit a crime. The court hearings kicked off in May. Following the prosecutor's statement calling out the conspiracy of Sarbapev's attorney with some of the jurors, the trial was suspended. The prosecutor requested the judge to sentence Sarbapev to 13 years in prison with confiscation of property. The defendant denied his guilt and later was released by the court. Zhanaozen residents were dissatisfied with the verdict since they also requested time for the official.
Zhanaozen is yet again in the center of attention. On Tuesday, several hundred workers of the service company Munai Field Service went on strike. The company that works as a subcontractor for Azen Munai Gas was left without a contract, with subsequent 500 people left without jobs. The strike of oil workers was localized, with a group of Aktau state officials arriving at the scene, headed by the deputy governor of the region. Labor inspectors assured that not a single worker will be sacked until the end of the year. More details in the next story.
Zhanaozen oil workers are left without work again, but now the spotlight has shifted on private companies working as subcontractors. Munai Field Service, established 9 years ago, worked diligently until recently and was one of its kind on the market. This is why people are now wondering how Munai Field Service could have ended up without contracts, leaving 500 people jobless. For 3 days, Munai Field Service employees have been waiting for their bosses, hoping they could explain what was going on. But the management failed to provide any answers, which prompted the oil workers to take drastic measures and declare a strike near the Zhanaozen office, demanding a talk with the Mangistau governor. His deputy Kuanosh Mukanov was sent instead, and after listening to complaints, replied with a traditional call for peace and consent. A more sound answer was given by the Chief of Employment and Social Programs Coordination Department of the Mangistau administration, who said that officials have already set up a special commission, while the labor inspection already revealed obvious violations of the labor code. Laws have been violated, and this is why a special commission is now investigating the matter. The oil workers themselves do not trust officials much, but are satisfied with the results of the meeting. At least their problem is being addressed at the administration level, since Munai Field Service management is ignoring the issue. Employees say that on Tuesday they saw their CEO, Demeo Dusinaliyev, for the first time in 8 years of the company's operation. Dusinaliyev, who came to the oil industry with a construction business background, refused to comment on the situation, citing a busy schedule. We have the lowest salaries at Munai Field Service, while we have to pay mortgage and other things. Our demands are addressed not to the local administration and not to the state, but to the management of our company. Munai Field Service's problem has been resolved, but only temporarily. Zhanaozen mayor himself announced the good news to the workers. Dear citizens, we must work understanding each other. No one will take away your work until the end of the year. This is why I repeat once again that we must work understanding each other, in unison and consent. There are some shortcomings on the part of the management, and they admit it. We told them to work out all the issues in legal ways, and I assure you that this will not happen again. The outcome of the strike has led to the signing of the collective agreement and allowed workers to keep their jobs until the end of the year. It is not clear what will happen next, but it should be noted that for the first time after the Zhanaozen tragedy, a labor conflict has been resolved quickly, albeit temporarily, in the Mangistau region.
Starting August 1st, grain exporters will not be compensated for transportation costs. This was voiced by the Agriculture Minister on Tuesday at the special session. The reason is the unprecedented drought, which already influenced the grain harvest, with 94,000 hectares of land withered.
Back on Monday, the president instructed Asyljan Mahmudbekov to monitor and stabilize grain prices, but already on Tuesday the minister filed a proposal to the government to save the situation. It was decided to transfer 1.3 million tons of grain from northern regions, all to be supplied by Kazagro and the Union of Grain Processors at the fixed price of $190 per ton. This amount will be used over the next 12 months until August 1st, 2013. The prices of 2 pounds of flour is expected to be set at 29 cents mark this year, while the loaf of bread shouldn't be higher than 30 cents. Despite all these efforts, bread prices have already started to rise in some regions. All enterprises reported as doing so will be fined. There are no reasons to raise bread prices by 15%. We are about to complete our investigation and later the case will be sent to court. Pavlodar bread plant might face a fine of 10% from the total income earned since the increase.
Residents of the still standing houses of the Besoba residential complex are tired of living in fear alone. They came out on a spontaneous meeting on Sunday, which was also attended by officials, emergency ministry employees and police officers who tried to calm down the residents. They are nervous the structures may collapse. The fencing appeared near the houses under construction.
We are not asking for something extraordinary because we just want our children to come back to their normal lives and sleep sound without worries. We have posed many questions to Mayor's office and Emergencies Ministry, but all of them gave us vague answers, and it looks like no one is responsible for anything now. I asked them a simple question of giving us guarantees that the apartment block will not collapse before dawn. If the answer was positive, we could have gone home. Why are they fencing off the building if there is no threat? Officials assured that the unfinished apartment block is fenced off to ease the tension among the people. Residents were also given a promise to arrange a meeting with the mayor very soon. On Tuesday, the website of Karaganda City Administration published a report of Kazakhstan's Multidisciplinary Institute of Reconstruction and Development following its additional inspection of the Besoba apartment blocks. Experts claim that there has been slight sediment of the foundation and an unfinished apartment building is not under threat of a collapse. The 3-inch tilt was registered back on the day when the inspection was launched in spring. According to experts' reports, the building is not sinking and represents no danger. However, Karaganda governor's office still decided to fence off the building to calm the population down. Meanwhile, Besoba residents, both children and adults, spent most of Monday night on the street. People believe that their panic is not groundless, saying the unfinished block is tilting towards other buildings and may collapse any time. Some local residents even claim that they can hear how the building is cracking at night.
It's been several days now that Pavlodar and its outskirts are covered in thick smoke. Official reports cite forest fires in Tomsk region and Khanty-Mansiysk autonomous region of the Russian Federation as the cause of the smog.
However, the local emergency department is not planning to declare the state of emergency. Specialists advise Pavlodar residents to stay inside their homes and leave them only when their need arises. Rescue workers say the smoke consisting of combustion products may negatively affect people's health. Pavlodar experts note that apart from smoke brought by wind from the neighboring country, the situation is aggravated by hazardous car emissions. The inspection revealed that the content of nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide in the air increases pollution by approximately 10%. Tests show that smoke content is not going down. Winds blow from the north, and I believe that the situation will last for longer than a day, especially since we are in a low-pressure area. The only thing we can recommend now is to stay off the streets and open areas, trying to remain indoors. If you really need to go outside, I would strongly advise you to use simple protection, such as respirators, gauze dressings, and bandages soaked in water.
Human rights activist Vadim Kuramshin announced a hunger strike in the Taras detention center on Monday, reported his colleague to Radio Azatik. Kuramshin warned the judge on July 18th, saying that he will forego food as the sign of protest against gross violations of his civic rights for a fair trial. The activist is being held under arrest on suspicion of extortion. Meanwhile, Karaganda activists organized a performance in the support of the Uralsk Week newspaper journalist Lukpan Akhmedyarov. Last week, the court ordered him and the publication to pay a $33,000 compensation fee to the head of the West Kazakhstan region Internal Affairs Office. The cause of the lawsuit on the part of the official was an article titled "Brother, Matchmaker and a Drag," in which the journalist pointed out kinship ties in local government. The journalist intends to appeal the decision.
The $33,000 compensation is nonsense if we compare it with compensations that were paid to families of Zhanaozian victims. They received $6,700 for every person who died during the events. Now the official will receive a compensation of $33,000, and the question is for what? Since the date of the article's publication and up to this day, he has not lost any bonuses, he wasn't downgraded or even reprimanded. In other words, his business reputation never suffered. The court's verdict will be surely appealed. Past actions of Akhmedyarov's supporters in Karaganda always ended up with arrests, so this time they decided on a new strategy, painting the slogan "Hands off Lukpan" on their own bodies and marching through the central park of the city. Law enforcement officers dressed in civilian clothes had no other option but to follow them in silence and record the bare backs of protesters on camera. As a journalist, I wanted to show my reaction to the trial of Lukpan Akhmedyarov. I believe that my colleague has suffered for his decision to express his civic stance and do his job. I think that today mass media cannot feel free and perform its function in Kazakhstan. It cannot write about the truth and report it to the public. Therefore, I decided to state my protest with my bare body.
Kazakhstan's Akhins declined an online improvisation experiment to avoid any accidents. Several of them accepted Radio Azatik's invitation to take part in the new project titled Chat Aytis at first, but reversed their decision afterwards. What may have affected their change of plans in the next report?
The Culture Ministry banned Akhins, traditional improvising poets and singers, from taking part in a Radio Azatik project. The medium offered them an unusual format, an Aytis chat, and it was to be held live on Monday. But on the 11th hour, the Akhins cancelled their appearance, apparently following an urgent meeting in a recently established Aytis department of the Culture Ministry. They were explained that it was in their best interest not to take any risks of saying something inappropriate. Yerkebulan Kaynazarov says that having weighed all the pros and cons, his fellow singers decided against the radio show. A writing Aytis can be done, but only when it is for a small audience. And if we take it to the national level, when everyone sees it, including from abroad, then we need to approach this much more seriously and to prepare better. I believe it is in the interest of maintaining the tradition that the competition should be done only on a real stage. The Aytis department has been established in the Culture Ministry's company Kazakh Auenderi just a month ago. The enterprise's head, Jursin Yerman, is glad the authorities have finally noticed traditional poets and gave them a state-supported status. At the same time, Yerman says this is not going to be another case of who pays the piper calls the tunes. As one of the creators of the television Aytis project, Yerman was cautious about the Azatik experiment. He says that nowadays everyone wants to get involved in Aytis and everyone wants to introduce some changes, which in the long run will ruin the competition that existed for years. We must preserve the nature of Aytis, and if everyone changes it right and left, then this ancient competition will lose its value as an art. We have just received a special status from the state. Aytis is now a recognized art form, and we are not happy about Radio Azatik Novelty, the improvisers' competition, in the form of a chat. The idea to overlay poets' free-thinking attitude, wit, and improvisation with the 21st century technologies and techniques have failed. The radio staff had to come up with an alternative. We are still working on the Aytis chat. Perhaps it will be called something else, and perhaps non-professional Akhins will participate in it. There are lots of people who compose songs and verses, especially in remote areas. Perhaps it will be a project with the audience, so that Akhins can compete with each other.
Kazakhstan's advertisers were judged at the Cannes Film Festival of Creativity in Advertisement. This year, more than 34,000 works from 87 countries were evaluated by the organizers. This was Kazakhstan's first participation in the Cannes Lions 2012. The country sent 15 experts from one agency to the festival.
There wasn't an official representative office, and it brought about a lot of confusion. People are not aware of many things, including the Cannes Lions. Someone thinks this is outer space, for others it is a gateway to parallel worlds. As a matter of fact, it is much more simple than that. 17 nominations were presented in Cannes Lions 2012. Participants from Kazakhstan presented their works in the categories of media and outdoor advertising. Those works did not bring them the awards. However, Askat Uskimbaev says that the works were positively evaluated. It means that participants from Kazakhstan have a chance to win the award at the next festival. It should be noted that participation of one delegate in the program cost the company over $750.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.